In this video, we're going to talk about web vulnerabilities. When we look at web vulnerabilities, there are a couple of things that can happen. You can have flaws in the site code, and a lot of these are what we call injections. In other words, the programmer that created a particular website, what they've done is they've not been careful about input to their code. And as is usually the case with a vulnerability, if the user has control over the input and you're not correctly checking all the input, they might inject something. So they might inject a code into some of your SQL queries, and that's a SQL injection. And that could cause you to, for example, log somebody in that you shouldn't, or retrieve all the records from a database instead of just one. So there are all kinds of injections that we have to deal with when we're looking at web code. And there's also what we call cross-site scripting errors, or XSS. Cross-site scripting allows you to run code from another site. It essentially allows you to run most anything. So, for example, if you might have a comment section on a website, if you don't do that carefully, someone could inject some code or refer to some code that runs a JavaScript that does bad things to your customers. Also, there are flaws in the underlying APIs used. Occasionally, some of the APIs that are developed are faulty, and there might be problems there as well. Finally, you might have some issues with the web server. Perhaps it's misconfigured some way. So these are all potential problems that you could discover if you were examining a website. So how do you find these flaws? Well, if you want to find the flaws in the site code, OWASP is your friend. So if you go to owasp.org, you will find all kinds of great information on what are common web flaws and how do you detect them and how do you prevent them. Just as is the case with other systems, you can use a vulnerability scanner. So here I have a couple listed. SQL Map will look for SQL databases and potential problems. Vega is kind of a general purpose scanner, and WFuzz, as the name implies, is a fuzzer. If you're looking at flaws in the API or flaws in the web server, those kinds of flaws you can look at with other kinds of scanners, including Nikto. Nikto is a very old but good scanner, and Wapiti is another scanner. It's a little bit newer. They're both good products. And I wanted to very quickly show you some of these scanners and how you might use them. So what I've done here is I've loaded up Kali Linux. Kali is a Linux that is used for penetration testing. And I am going to run a scan of a website that is quite vulnerable using Nikto. So Nikto is pretty simple to use. You just say Nikto, give it a host. So in this case, I've given it the address of another virtual machine that I have running here. One of the nice things about something like Kali is that it comes with a whole bunch of different scanning tools, etc. I'm not a huge fan about using something like Kali for day to day, but I do use it when I'm teaching at the university because it has everything there. But here I'm going to run Nikto against another database. It's determined that the web server is running Apache 228 on Ubuntu, and it also has PHP installed. And now it's going to give me any vulnerabilities it found, basically misconfigurations in the website. And one thing that's nice about Nikto is that it's going to give me references. So you see here where it says OSVDB 877. That is a reference to the open source vulnerability database. Here's another one. And this will take a little bit of time to complete. Vulnerability scanners are slow. While that's working, I just wanted to show you the results from Vega. Now, again, Vega is more geared toward finding site code that has problems versus Nikto, which is more geared toward misconfigured web servers, etc. I did a scan of that same site, and here are the results. So far, it has found 1,503 problems, of which 541 were classified as high priority to be fixed. So I can look in here and I can see things like clear text passwords, cross-site scripting problems, shell injections, SQL errors, SQL injection errors, and then there are some other flaws as well. And this scan has run for several hours already, just to give you an idea. There you have a very brief introduction to web vulnerabilities.